Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this digitally enabled meeting of the Budget Committee of North Perth. Welcome to Council and staff, and thank you for your participation tonight. This is our third of 6 meetings to deal with the budget specifically this year. Of course, the first meeting was a visioning night. The second meeting that was held 2 weeks ago was our first of our capital 4 capital projects. Tonight, we will hear the last of the 4 from the senior staff. Our fourth meeting, which is scheduled for January the 13th, we will be dealing with the operating, most of the operating accounts and budgets from all of our senior staff. The fifth meeting we will be dealing with, which is scheduled for January the 27th, we will be looking at amendments and the resulting presentations and resulting impacts, surplus, segregated surplus reserve funds, and the whole budget as a whole. And we will look that night to try and finalize as much as we can the operating and the project budgets that evening. So tonight we will be hearing from the BIA. Scott Patterson, Chris will be presenting the library. Ed Smith will be presenting the fire. Lyndon will be doing the roads, drainage, stormwater, and bridges. And then Mark Hackett, our Manager of Environmental Services, will be bringing the environmental services. And then we will circle back, Council, to have a discussion on all capital budgets, the capital projects. But do not despair if we don't get everything discussed tonight. We will be coming back with time on that either the fourth or the fifth meeting to discuss more of those projects. So I know some of them will just be presented tonight, and we will be going over the combined sheets. But I just want to let council be reassured this is not our last kick at the capital projects tonight. We will be running no eScribe tonight. It will be voting in WebEx. So keep your chat function up and running, because that is where we will be voting tonight, because we're not running eScribe. With that, we have a agenda that has been published. I would looking for a mover and seconder to approve the agenda. I would start off with full reindeer gear. Councillor Andreessen, would you move the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved?
Yes, I'll approve the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Councillor Anstead, would you second that?
Yes, I would second that. Thank you.
Thank you. And once again, folks, I'm very on the informal side tonight. So please, no budget chair or budget this, just Dave is fine with me, please. Is there anyone opposed to tonight's agenda? Please, if you are opposed, say so in the chat function. Seeing none, we will call our agenda approved. Is there anyone with any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? I have not received any. Pat, have you? If there is any, please bring it forward in the chat function. Seeing none, we will move on to item 2.1, the minutes from our November 24th budget evening. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the minutes be approved. Councillor Bearns, would you move that, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, would you second that motion?
Yep, I will.
Thank you. Anyone opposed to the minutes of the November 25th, 2020 budget meeting? Please say so in the chat function. Seeing none, that is approved. Now moving on, we have no delegations tonight. So we're moving on to item number 4, and please have your budget ebook up and ready to go. I know it can be a little bit extra work, but please, that's our best way to follow along. And I will be looking to item 4.1, the adjusted capital project ranking sheet. And I think Chris was going to discuss that with us tonight. CAO Snell.
Thank you, Dave. So as discussed at the last budget meeting, with the council approval column, we basically this time have just removed that from the scoring. And this did not have a great impact on items with the exception of the council dashboard being moved to the very bottom. So instead of it being out of 100 as the last meeting, the total is now out of 90. In the budget policy that council will be presented next year, we will actually be doing more work on the ranking system. We'll set better parameters and have council review those parameters prior to being inserted into the budget for next year. As we discussed last time, this is a bit of a work in progress, but that'll become part of our future budget policy, and hopefully we'll make improvements going forward. Thank you.
Any questions for Chris? Seeing none, we're going to keep moving tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Item 4.2, which in your flip books is tab number 6, Listable BIA, and it's my pleasure to welcome Scott Patterson, Vice Chair of the BIA. Scott, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dave. Hello, everyone on committee tonight. I have a brief presentation for you on behalf of the Listable BIA, just to outline some of the things that we've done through 2020 and to present our budget for 2021. I assume, Pat, can you move me through to the next slide, please, if that's possible? So just as a year in review, we continue to build on the Discover Listable brand and market Listable as a place to shop, dine, and discover. And that's all done through our 2020 marketing plan. We continue to support the events that we can, being Patty Fest, events through the summer, and especially through the holiday season. We do our seasonal promotions and the beautification throughout the town. And we offer community event support, which we partner in, attend, and sponsor. And this year in particular, Lisa Schaefer, who's also on tonight, is our coordinator. She's offered a tremendous amount of COVID-19 business support to anyone needing that. We did host our AGM meeting. It was much different this year, small group, and just had a review of what we've done and some discussion going forward. And one of the big things that we had intended to do this year was our Win This Space program, which was launched originally and then unfortunately it was postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. So some of the highlights again are the decorating contests that we run for the businesses. One of the things that we did this past year was the decorating contest for the residents, which was really well received. We do the holiday business scavenger hunt. Again, we do the town decorations, which we try to expand on every year. I know Lisa's bought some bigger items again this year that the town will see put up. We do the Deck the Halls Town Open House and the Shop Local Dollar Promotion. And we do our marketing through radio, print, websites, and social media, which is continuing to grow. Next slide, please. So for a budget for 2021, we're requesting a total budget of $119,300. This is an increase of $300 from 2020. And we're not asking for a cost of living increase, given the impact of COVID-19 has had on all of the local businesses. This budget does reflect Win This Space 2021, which again was postponed earlier this year due to COVID-19. Next slide, please. So our budget will fund the events that we do and that we coordinate ourselves, that we participate in, that others are coordinating, and that we just act in to support for other groups. We will try to run Win This Space, which I'll talk to a little bit later. It helps us with our ongoing marketing and promotion through local media, the newsprint, radio, social media, and the web. Again, it helps with our summer beautification program. All the flowers in the downtown are as a result of the BIA, and the holiday decoration and maintenance and add-ons that we continue to do. Next slide. The budget also looks after and pays for our part-time coordinator at 24 hours a week. And that includes the wages, benefits, and the pension for that. It includes training for the coordinator and for the board members, such as conferences and seminars. It includes our meeting expenses, which are fairly limited, our online software and memberships, sponsorship of various events, the audit fees and municipal staff support, and general office supplies and cell phone. Next slide. So the focus for 2021, one of the big things that we'll try to do again this year is win this space. We'll continue on with the Discover Listable brand and marketing as the place to shop, dine, and discover. The events, the seasonal promotions, the beautification, COVID-19 recovery and business support efforts, which will be big this year, and the North Perth Facade Improvement Program, which the BIA is supporting through both financially and in-kind efforts. Next slide, please. So as noted, Win This Space was to originally be launched on March 4th, but was then postponed due to COVID-19. We're definitely going to try to run it this year, and it was tentatively planned to launch on January 13th. But at our last BIA meeting, it was the consensus was just to postpone it and push it back due to the impact that COVID-19 is still having on the businesses. A new date has not been set. We have reached out to Libro, who's the primary sponsor of that, and we're to regroup with them in March or April of this year just to provide an update and see if we can determine when this can go forward again. Fortunately, as many of you probably have noticed, there's very few vacancies in town right now, which is a good thing. So Win This Space may actually be difficult to operate and find a home for a business, but we'll see how this progresses through 2021 and what openings are available through storefronts, and definitely try to run that program as we see it as beneficial for the downtown area. Next slide. So that concludes my brief presentation. As noted, Lisa is also available if there's any questions or concerns, but we are asking for the budget of $119,300 this year, which is a mild increase of the $300 over last year's budget. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott, and welcome, Lisa. Is there any questions for the BIA at this time? I commend you, the BIA, for trying to run the Win This Space. I think it's a great program, but it is just a terrible timing with COVID and the businesses, some businesses struggling like they are. I hope that yes, I agree. I hope that by March and April you can revisit it, and it would be a really good problem if there is no storefronts available for Win This Space. That is a really good problem to have, because I know there's too many towns that have way too many choices for Win This Space. They could have Win This Block in certain spots. So if we are doing that well, that we don't have a storefront, congratulations to the BIA. Then I think some of your efforts are working good. And I think your advertising on the shop local, keep the money in Listable, I think has been going over very well this year. And I see lots of people doing it this year. So congratulations to the BIA. And I don't see any other questions popping up at this point, Pat. So thank you, Scott. Thank you, Lisa. And we're going to move on to tab number 7, which is 4.3 on our agenda, the North Perth Public Library. Okay, yes, just bear with me. Sorry, we have I have a resolution in front of me here that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approved the 2021 BIA budget in the amount of $119,300. So I'm entertaining a mover and a seconder to move forward with the budget at this point. This is a standard process that we do every year at this time. Deputy Mayor Kellum, would you move this, please?
Absolutely, I will make that motion.
Thank you. Mayor Kaysenberg, would you second it?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. It's open for comments now if anybody has any, but they're asking for a increase of $300. So the budget will go from 119,000 to 119,300, and it's standard for us to approve it at this point so that they can carry on with their programs. Any questions or comments on the motion that is on the floor? Seeing none, if you are opposed, please say so in the chat function. Seeing none, that is approved. And the budget, the BIA budget is for 2021 is approved. Scott, thank you. Now we will move on to item 4.3, which is tab 7 in your flip books, the North Perth Public Library. And the presentation will be from Chris tonight. Chris, you're on.
Thank you again, Dave. Just basically a quick recap on the projects that were completed last year by the library, where there's the Atwood sewer connection, the exterior signage, and the Listable library painting and power door operators. And as well as council's aware, the big project was the construction and completion of the Moncton branch. So that's very exciting for the library moving forward in 2021. Basically, there's no new projects in the capital project sheets for 2021, but there are a couple carryovers, including the Listable library and pergola repairs, as well as the ongoing design and development for the North Perth Community Hub. So really that's the presentation tonight. I guess I would just like to add that the Listable masonry repair work I would think will be deferred until there is a plan going forward on the community hub design. I'll certainly entertain any questions that I can answer, and if not, we'll get back to council with those answers.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions on library? Councillor Seiler, go ahead.
Thank you, Dave. No, Chris, just a question I've had brought to me, and I don't know how to answer it about our library in Moncton, there, our old library. What would we be doing with that building, or what's the process we're going to do with that?
So at present time, we're just continuing cleaning up the existing furniture in the building, and then I will be bringing forward a plan for council in the future to how we dispose of that asset. It is owned by the municipality, and that will be a decision that will be made by council.
Great, thank you, Chris. Does that answer your question, Terry?
Yeah, that's great. I know I think there's some interest out there on it, so I just wanted to bring that forth. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Andreessen.
Hi, through you, Dave. This is just directed to Chris. I sit on the board for the library, and I just want to make everyone aware that the repair for the masonry is actually could be fairly critical in terms of the pillars actually being cared for so that they don't disintegrate any further. And I believe that there's also some masonry required on the original building, and that repair should also be a big part of the consideration. So I'm not sure if it's wise to defer it. It's been on the docket, I think, for almost 2 years. So I just wanted to bring that to your awareness that it may not be something that should be deferred just because it's an asset. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Chris, do you have any comments about that?
No, I think those comments are fair, and certainly Councillor Andreessen's right. There is some stonework on the old library part, or the Carnegie part of the library that should be addressed immediately, and the part certainly around the pergola will have to be making sure it's those pillars are in good shape before we replace the pergola. So I will have further conversations with facility staff to look at what needs to be done immediately to make sure the building does not deteriorate any further, and what can be postponed, if anything. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Chris. That was going to be my question tonight as well, is there any of that masonry work that must be done? Councillor Behrens, go ahead.
Yeah, that was basically my comment as well, Dave, through you, that some time ago, some of us attended, and Rebecca had showed us some of the masonry work that needed to be done on the old building, and that has got to move forward as quickly as possible. I'm not sold on the pergola to begin with, so I'm not going to debate that one at this time, but that was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. Is there any other questions with regard to North Perth Public Library? Seeing none, thank you very much, and thank you, Chris. We'll move on to tab 8, North Perth Fire Department. Ed Smith, the Fire Chief, you're up. Ed?
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, there's not a whole lot going on with the fire department as far as capital. The approval of the 3 new trucks had went forward. We were hoping to have 2 of them for the end of this year, which I've just learned as of today. We will not be receiving the first 2 till January 11th and the last one on May 21st. So basically, that's all that's ongoing with the fire department. It's been a carryover, and we have no capital projects new for this coming year other than complete that project.
Great, thank you, Chief Smith. Pat, do we have a few pictures to show of the trucks? Council, if you'll bear with us, we have a few pictures of the trucks that Pat's going to try and put up to us. As I think this is some construction pictures, isn't it, Pat?
That's correct. It is construction pictures of the trucks, and I'll kind of walk you through. I didn't realize we were going to do it right now. I thought maybe we...
No, we're going to do it right now while it's
Okay.
fresh in your mind, Ed.
All right. This is the pumper for Atwood that we're starting with here by the look of the...
There we go.
Can you see them?
I can, because they're on Pat's screen. Council, can anybody see them?
I'm not able to see them myself.
We're going to try again. Bear with us, Council. Now I can see your mouse moving, Pat. No, it's not showing up on our screens here, Pat. It's on your screen, but not on our screen. I can see them, Ed, because I'm in council chambers, but only Pat and I can see them. And they look like steel frames that are like children's play apparatus type stuff. They don't really look much like a fire truck.
Well,
okay,
if
we
can figure this out for later, then I can walk you through it.
Okay, we'll circle back to this, Pat. We whether we need Simon to get it to show to everybody. So we, folks, there are some pictures we will circle back to. Pat and I can see them. Yep, we're not sure. Anyway, we will, Pat will come back to it. We will move on to tab number 9, roads, bridges, stormwater, and drainage. And I'll turn it over now to our Manager of Operations, Lyndon. The floor is yours, Lyndon.
Thank you, Dave. Just getting organized with capital sheets. Just to overview then, and to start the meeting out, I've laid it out as everyone else has with a review of projects. There were several projects completed, and I'll read them. Kincaid, Pedestrian Crossovers, especially the one on Argyle, the Line 81 Bridge project, stormwater infrastructure upgrades, a couple spots with the new school development out behind Road 158 Tremaine. Road 140, we did design work for 2 culverts that'll be proposed shortly. We also installed a new sidewalk, especially accessible sidewalk in the Moncton corners of the main intersection, and winter modernization projects were done in coordination with the county. There were several carryover projects that are listed, and we'll see those as I speak to them as we leaf through the report, if that's all right, and you can read the bullets about the detail behind them, but I will review them shortly. And then as well, new projects that are listed and proposed that haven't been seen to this point are shown as a new bridge project that we did apply for funding for previously. Davidson, I'll talk about that. New pavement preservation projects, and then fleet purchases as well. So with your consent, I will just move directly into the summaries, and I can walk through the individual tabs briefly. Dave, were questions being held to the end, or I guess I'll just watch the chat box and you can remind me if someone asks. Oh, yeah, just can't hear. Okay.
If there's specific questions, we can catch them at that time, or we can circle back at the end.
Very good. Project number 1, Stormwater Levy Master Plan's been on the docket for a couple years. Our roster process for engineering, which saw pre-qualification for several disciplines. We've had preliminary meetings with BM Ross, who was awarded the environmental section, and we'll be discussing that project with them. It's outlined here at 145,000 plus some material and equipment works. We'll get a proposal specifically from the firm to update that, but I'm hoping that that number encompasses the overall work. It is a master plan process. It is public engagement. It's going to be a detailed review of storm activity, all stormwater reports in the listable area, and it's going to consolidate everything in a way that we would know what our priority projects are, where the most needed work is, and allocate some cost to that work as well, and give us a capital program for the next 5 to 10 years. So it's an aggressive and broad project that should be initiated in January and will take the entire year. Project number 2, Transportation Master Plan and Traffic. We're familiar with this. The project is underway. The project is to be concluded in June with a final report coming forward. Timing is good. The official plan is in draft format for the county. It's looking at settlement area boundary expansion. We're able to tie the two together to look at where we're going to have accessible walkways for pedestrians. We're also looking at, of course, how we handle our vehicle increases over the next 25-year window. The master plan is going to give some insight into what we do with traffic calming as well. Specifically, I listed the Wallace corridor that just came up. I've got a proposal from them. They'll be initiating a public process. They really do want to inform the public what the options are and what the best decisions are so that they're on board cradle to grave on the process of calming. And it's going to be able to be applied to other sectors in Listable as well. So that's the master plan process that's being looked at. There is a core trial program that we talked about, reducing traffic to one way south of the main intersection in town. It is still proposed to move forward as traffic volumes have increased, probably a May initiation of that. But I will be coming to council probably in February to discuss traffic levels, recommendations from the consultants, and that we are indeed going to move forward with that trial. Project number 3, 911 sign installation is, I think I've put in here, it's still moving, probably 2/3 to 3/4 completed with the 911 tabs. We expect roadway tabs to be replaced at corners next year if the county produces those for us and delivers them, which is the plan. And that's budget to continue that program of putting in new reflectivity or adequate reflectivity in the signs and replacing all of them. Project 4, Atwood servicing upgrades. Of all the projects, this is the one at the greatest risk in the sense that the MTO needs to make approvals, give us agendas or timelines in terms of the work that they plan to do through Atwood so that we know what we need to do in advance, and we need to coordinate much with them. There was a budget established through a funding application that failed at just over $4 million, and that's what's in front of you for the work. It includes a full revitalization of the corridor down Main Street in Atwood Highway 23, seeing new water main installed through that corridor from Arthur Street north to the pump station road. I forget the name of the road, but regardless, we all know where that is. It's heading right to the new subdivision. So that's the upgrade. It also includes some upgrades to the pump station and the main running to it to allow for fire flow. So it's an aggressive, large project. This is a project that's contingent on the MTO's approvals. So I'm going to have to simply say that it's on the docket, but it is not understood when this will actually happen. It's listed this year. We do have a window of difficulty here. If we can't start design very shortly and the MTO doesn't respond in the next month to 2 months as to their timing and their approvals, we probably will see this deflect off to the following year. Okay, I'm moving to project number 5. Listable core infrastructure upgrades. This is a carryover project, and I think it's necessary. Continually, we get asked about core conditions, core asphalt. We did some remedial work, patching work in the core with the asphalt. There are many curb lines, many sidewalk surfaces, many light standards, and many unsafe curb edges along parking lines that need to be rebuilt. We don't want to simply rebuild those because we know we have streetscape designs that have been drafted to revitalize the entire core. This is an opportunity to bring a consultant in and to look in detail at the overall revitalization of the core to see if we can phase it over a 1, 2, 3 year window, and to also give up-to-date costing for the overall project. You know, how long it's going to take, what the cost would be, so we have that in the in our background in terms of projects moving forward and know exactly what it is, how long it's going to take, and if it could be phased and have less impact on local business and the downtown merchants. So that's the effort there. The roster engineer for linear will be assigned that, one of the engineering firms, to do that work. Project 6, Northeast Master Plan, it's in the administration group as well, and Chris will talk to that. This is the technical part of actually starting to construct the work. We did get survey work completed. Design work can be initiated now with one of the roster engineers. It's a very large project. We'll look for some proposals and some timelines from firms on it, and we need to get moving on that prior to Christmas, at least, to get the information to the consultants as to what we're looking for, have it defined, and then move into a design period starting as early as January and February, in the hopes that we can see construction towards the later part of summer. And that is the anticipation for that job. Again, it's a large ticket job. This is a very high level estimate that was done by the firm that did the master plan. And at this point, I'd have to say that I have to update once we get tender information back and some estimates done on construction. Project 7, Line 84 reconstruction will continue. The water main will extend right to Wallace, and we'll continue the roadway the entire length to Tremaine. We're all familiar with the project and the process. Anticipated completion, I think, should say June or July 2020 for that work. Tab 8, Road 140 reconstruction, a project in partnership with Perth East. At the very bottom, notice 2022, 2023, based on our speed and the amount of repair that needs to be done to the road. Perth East is responsible for the next construction years, and we're looking at it continuing on with this contribution carrying forward for those years. Project number 11, Albert Storm Trunk. Vast amount of work done this year. The trail is opening as we speak, really, and we're putting up some safety snow fence in some gap areas. And I'll be coordinating that with Parks Department in terms of it being absolutely open. The Snowmobile Association has taken a look, and they're also going to be staking some areas, but it is free and clear. They're demobilizing. A couple minor jobs to do on that project. It will not be sodded, and top course asphalt will be coming along with sod restoration, etc., and some additional construction at the very top end. Concluding, we're expecting no later than July. Top coat asphalt could take that long, but the rest of the works would be out of the way, we're hoping, in the spring.
Lyndon,
Project number 10.
Lyndon, can I stop you right there for a second? Mayor Kasenberg has a question about the Northeast Master Plan. Mayor Kasenberg, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm having a bit of connectivity issues tonight as well, so let me know if I break up in asking the question. The Northeast Master Plan, very significant project, as you've said, a phased project. My concern about this project, I think, is that I really want to understand, because it is a developmental investment, what the sort of business plan is, and what we foresee as net investment of the municipality and return on that investment through what it will enable in terms of development. Can you tell me anything about efforts being made to that end at this point?
I've talked to Chris regarding that layout, and we talked about it through the master plan process in terms of, you know, which area needs to be initiated first, and it is, I call it the southern end. It's going to be the Walton corridor. We know there's some development on Walton, and a pump station, best way to describe it, is in the Hudson's area. So that's the very initial work. It provides servicing for already existing homes, but also some existing businesses. In terms of the funding model and the planning, I'll just default to Chris.
CAO Snell.
Thank you. And this is it is a phased project, and unfortunately, some of this first phase is really not going to have a huge impact or return, because this is really actually addressing what I would call historical issues. We have a lot of stormwater management concerns in that area. All those existing facilities are either on partial services or on private services. We've had some failure of private services over the short term. It really, unfortunately, some of this area should not have sort of developed the way it has, but certainly it's sort of hard to correct history now, but we're making an attempt to do that. So this first phase is really actually just kind of correcting some of yesterday's issues, and we'll be bringing back more of a plan as business plan as how we want to recoup the costs on the development land that we commonly refer to as the former Moore property, which we'll be developing for highway commercial and light industrial. So I hope that answers the mayor's questions.
Mayor Todd, do you have another question out of that, or did that answer your query?
No, that's great. Thanks, both of you.
Thanks, Lyndon. We can get back to where you were then.
Okay, we were discussing Albert Street. I think I concluded that.
Yep.
The main goal there was really pedestrian accessibility to the school, unbinning, etc. That all was completed and is running well. Next tab is tab 10, pedestrian crossovers. We're going to take a close look at the Anchorman crossover. We're also going to be looking at several trail crossovers. And I'm not sure if it's listed in here, but also the roundabout crossovers. So we're going to look at enhancements, signage, and paint in all those areas. The large one being the one that needs the MTO approval. That'll be the design of the Anchorman crosswalk. We've already spoke about it being perhaps at the north side of the intersection. I'll probably be bringing that back to council in the first quarter and looking to send approvals or apply for approvals from the MTO and have construction later in the year. Project number the next project I have is project 9. This one involves design that was done. If you could, I've lost everyone on my screen. I hope you can hear me. The Bridge and Culvert program is the design of 2 smaller structures and rehabilitation, as well as the Davidson Street Bridge. And those are the. So we need to continue the design work on Davidson, and that's the proposal for which will be a large and high impact project this year. I will, parallel to the budget approval process, be talking to the engineering firm about what we're doing with that job and timing and approvals, probably as early as January. Next project listed is asphalt resurfacing and pavement preservation. We did preparation on line 89 this year. Deteriorated conditions on the surface. We're going to finish that with paving, but it was a bit of a test for our own staff in terms of widening the platform, allowing for a wider shoulder and slightly more asphalt on a roadway. It was a significant amount of work. I think we did it cost effectively, and it's going to be a bit of a model for how we move forward with these sections in an attempt to provide a broader platform, a bit more shoulder, and a wider traveling surface on these narrow roads, on these 66-foot road allowances. So you'll see the list there. I won't speak to it specifically, but we're looking at some pavement preservation methods, what is like a tar and chip, to try and cover a road that is deteriorating but will be held for another, hopefully 3 to 5 years. Like the fiber mat of past, it does hold the road together, prevents potholing, bad alligating, and full deterioration for reconstruction. So we're trying to hold some together, keep them safe, and then others we're fully replacing. So that's the list of works, some in-town works as well. Next project is new sidewalk, and we are looking at a few locations, probably 300 meters. We are looking at the corridor in front of the fire hall, the other side of Wallace that does not have sidewalk. Some development is moving forward in that area. This is the east side, and it's going to connect for pedestrians, for school children walking to the south and the north, depending where they are, to get to school as well. So it's one of those linking areas, and it's proposed for the year. Next project.
Lyndon, just hang on there. We have a question on sidewalks.
Yes.
Mayor Todd, go ahead.
Thanks, Dave. Just quickly, can you indicate the status of our sidewalk remediation efforts in Moncton and Atwood? Have those operations been completed, Lyndon?
No, they have not been completed. There are probably a few seasons of work as we make our way through through both those towns. We've done some repairs. I'd have to look at the detailed lists, but we expect to be back in both communities doing more work in the future. It's not listed under the capital program. We have a large amount in operational sidewalk repair and replacement as well, and that usually goes to spot repairs of sidewalks in those areas. Although the Moncton corners are an example with the tactile plates, we also widened it for the sidewalk plow to allow for better plowing in the wintertime. That was an example. There is additional work to happen in Moncton at its north end to make the sidewalk more accessible to some of the side streets and do some replacements in there. They're not listed specifically, but those programs will be ongoing.
Thank you, Lyndon.
Great,
Mayor.
thank you. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Okay, the next item is fleet purchases. In the overall total, there is a form of boom mower that we want to purchase, our old grader boom mower, and this is only used now at corners for sight lines. We need to extend beyond the 2 to 3 meters that the existing mower on the tractor has, and that's included as an item at 25,000. We're still researching it in the fleet list. If you look at the snippet on the last page of the fleet list, it does include the 05 grader in Alma, a backhoe, a line painter, the 1-ton service unit in Listable, and then also landfill equipment included, which will be spoken to by Mr. Hackett when he talks environmental services landfill, compactor and a skid steer. I would say though, there's been more review done and the modernization reports have come out. Although they don't specifically say that we can reduce equipment, the grader purchase is one that could be, and I'm recommending tonight, removed from this list at 325. The real number is probably going to be 385, but we're looking at, you know, the functionality of trucks versus graders and are wanting to defer that replacement and remove it from the list and bring it forward in some format next year. So if whoever is taking notes could make note of that, drop that by the 325.
We have a question from Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, through you, Dave. I have a question for Lyndon, just around the mowing. I'm assuming that this would be for rural roads. Is that correct, Lyndon?
Yes, that's right.
And would it perhaps help in terms of increasing more and having more of it being done? Because we're noticing that there was not a lot of servicing around mowing this summer, and perhaps this equipment could increase that. Is that possible?
We have a standard process of 2 cuts, and now we're through council's approval have gone with a spray program as well for weeds. So all of that has been initiated. Spraying is every second year, and the cutting is every year with 2 cuts. It's dependent very much on when the grass grows. We coordinate this with the county, and we actually cut all the county roads within North Perth. So that program really didn't change this year in that level of service. We do try and wait and limit it to 2 cuts and none in the center of that. But this corner cut, I'll call it, or sight line, sight triangle cut, is something that we've always done as well. This mower is going to provide that service. If there is high growth in an area and we do get a call, we can send that mower out and it would trim back an area that's a sightline problem, perhaps at a certain driveway or in a certain section of road as well.
And sorry, one more clarification. You talked about trucks instead of the grader. Do you mean the large, almost dump trucks that are used? Is that what you mean?
Yes, absolutely. That truck, you know, is able to go on a gravel road, then a paved road, and it's able to sand the paved road immediately. And it's a multifunctional tool as opposed to the grader, which can only plow on the gravel road and on an asphalt road, but there's a liability and a problem in the sense that it can't sand. and we like to sand the minute we plow for level service and safety. So we're just looking at the number of pieces we have, best use of them, and having the best tool in the toolbox. So we want to review that through the year and take a look at whether we want to look at the truck option versus the grader option and not replace right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lyndon. I would say carry on. I don't see any other questions at this point.
Okay. The cemetery items are the next on my flip chart. We have the new Columbarium listed, and we did get the foundation and sidewalk poured and in place. Actually, just last week it came to full strength. I talked to the vendor. The Columbarium can be delivered probably through the holidays and into January. We're trying to set a date up, and it would be boom trucked in, and it would be available at that time, and that would see the completion of that project. We will be adding landscaping in the spring. So that's where that sits, and that budget is in front of you at 51,000. That would be the purchase of the Columbarium, the remainder of the work. The next item I have is cemetery signage, and I did have an amendment on this one as well. And the cemetery signage is listed for a single site plus the offices having our wayfinding style branded signs. And I'd like to add an item of $8,000 for security and privacy fence along the side of our office or chapel area as well. The need for that is the area has developed and there's a lot more children, and they're finding their way onto the property where we have our works, and even near the shop and sheds and the office. So for safety, we want to put the fence up, and it'll give a bit of privacy as well, but it's mainly to make sure the kids are kept back from the turning radius of equipment. And so that's an additional 8,000 on that project, and I would simply title it cemetery signage and cemetery fencing.
Okay. I would say carry on.
Yep, and on my list, that concludes the capital for the two areas of roads and then cemetery.
Thank you very much, Lyndon. Is there any more questions for any of the projects that Lyndon, that deal specifically with the projects that Lyndon has proposed for us tonight? Not seeing any at this point. We will move on to tab number 10, Environmental Services. Mark Hackett, Manager of Environmental Services, you're up.
Thanks, Dave. I will do similar to Lyndon. I'll go through the reviews for each of the parts of the Environmental Service Department. Start with the Solid Waste Division. In 2020, we had the Listable Landfill Remedial Action Plan, which revolved around the CAS agreements. One of them has been completed. There's a second one that's just waiting on hearing back from them. So I was hoping to have that done by the end of the year. And also we did some landfill cell construction at the Alma landfill, and that work is complete. The wastewater division, we had the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. That is basically complete. It had substantial completion in February. We are still waiting on the grading that's required in the headworks building. It's been delayed, I've been told, by the COVID issues. So we're hoping to have that done as soon as possible. The lagoon tree planting was completed. The return activated sludge pump replacement was actually completed today. And we're working on the hydraulic re-rating of the wastewater treatment plant, and that's moving into 2021. On the water side, we did the SCADA server replacement, and that is almost complete. It should be done by the end of the year. And also the Listable Well 5 rehab and maintenance inspection. Again, that will be done by the end of next week. Just waiting on a couple of things there, and it'll be all good to go. So I would then jump into each of the projects, starting with the landfill. We have one project there that is to install a landfill loading dock. We have been running our mattress recycling program for a number of years there, where the way the system works is we have a 20-foot sea can that we put mattresses into, and then they get transported or shunted to a 53-foot trailer that's located, we rent. It's located in Listable. and then they get taken on to the recycler. To reduce operating costs and to limit the amount of handling of these mattresses, which, as you know, can be quite heavy, we're proposing to install a outdoor loading dock at the landfill. So then the trailer that we rent could be located at the landfill, and we would eliminate that approximately $8,000 a year that we do put towards moving those mattresses. So it would involve a few things there. It's really not all that much, about $7,500. However, the bigger purchase would be, as Lyndon mentioned, the skid steer. We need to be able to get the mattresses onto the truck and up quite high onto the 53-foot trailer. So we've included that in the fleet purchases for 2021. The next project I have then is moving on to the wastewater side. And as mentioned, we have the hydraulic re-rating of the wastewater treatment plant. We're nearing capacity. Although there is sufficient uncommitted reserve capacity at this time, with all of the growth that's occurring, as Council's aware, it's going very quickly. So we're hoping that we can get to that this year, and the project's actually been started, and the remainder of it will be completed this year as we move through that process of applying for re-rating of the plant. The second project I have for the wastewater treatment plant is the auger grinder replacement at the septic receiving station. And that's part of our screening system for when we have incoming waste to the septic receiving station. These are things that wear over time and they get used quite regularly. It's a very busy place. So these are typical things that we replace every 3 or 4 years. That came to about $69,000. We're also looking at paving the wastewater treatment plant driveway. It's never been paved before, but during the upgrades that have been occurring for the last couple of years, part of the project was to pave the upper area where a lot of the upgrades took place. And we're just looking at to continue that paving throughout the rest of from the driveway in. We're not looking at doing the septic receiving station road turnaround there, as it's with the trucks turning there, we'll probably just tear it all up. So that was at $60,000. We're hoping to include that in the annual paving tender. Next project I had was air release valve replacement. So our force mains that come from the wastewater or from the pump station at Highway 23 that brings all the sewage out to the sewage treatment plant. There are air release valves that protect that force main, and they're due to be replaced. We also have a number of them on the Atwood force main. There's a total of 9 altogether, and we're proposing purchasing 10, so they have an extra one as a spare, and then they would be installed next year as well. Project 5 is the aeration tank rehabilitation. So last year we replaced all of the air diffuser membranes. There's I think 17. I can't remember their number. There's a lot of them though. 1,700, I believe, is the right approximate number. I have it there. Anyway, they last about 10 years, and they're at that life expectancy. So we did it under operations last year, but we're doing it proposing it as a capital project. We have a really good idea of how to go about doing that better. It was a bit of a challenge, but we've got a good plan in place for that for next year. This project, the next one, project 6, is a water meter replacement. So we have close to 4,000 water meters throughout our water systems, and they originally were installed around 2004, 2005. And so that in 2021, they'll be 17 years old. They've reached their useful life. So about 60% of those were installed then. So technology has changed quite a bit since that time. There are different meters and different ways of reading them. We're looking at 2 different types of systems, either an automated meter reading system that is in a drive-by, or the tower type system that is called an AMI. And so what our proposal would be this year is to go to RFP to decide what type of a system we would use and get prices on that and move forward with that. Once that was decided, then we'd be able to go to RFP for the actual water meter purchase and installation. So the RFP processes would all take place in 2021, leading us to be able to start the installation process and get it completed entirely in 2022. We're hoping that by doing the system this way, these new systems allow us to read multiple types of meters, not just one style of meter, and that allows us to be competitive when we purchase meters in the future, and we'll be able to save a substantial amount of money. So that project, as I said, that's that's how we bill for wastewater services as well. So that project you're going to see come up again here in a moment. That project is approximately $1.6 million, 800,000 for in 2022 for the wastewater side and 800,000 for the water side. We also have project number 7, which is the wastewater treatment plant. We have some roof repairs on the older part of the building. We have got a price on it, and it came to $45,000 as an estimate. And that's proposed for next year as well. As council may recall, in 2020, we did an infiltration and inflow study in Listable and to look at some of the issues that we have there. That study has been completed. We have a list of recommendations that's come from that, and I've attached kind of a chart of that. So next year, we're looking at inspecting the low-lying structures for issues, replacing all the overflow flap gates that are on some of the pump stations and other areas to protect it from inflow from the river, to repair any of the structures that we may identify while we're doing the inspections, and then also to target 2 specific areas in 2021 to do some cammering. That was, they refer to it as number 6 and number 9 in the report, and that's Elizabeth Street East and Alma Street East were 2 of the worst areas for infiltration. And we were using this as a guide to then where we would need to do repairs. That is the last project with the wastewater side. I have one project again, and I won't go into it deeply because I just talked about it. For the water side, that's the other part of the water meter replacement program. So I'd be able to take any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any questions for Mark at this point? Once again, lots of projects on the go on your side, Mark, but some exciting ones and some ones that create some great efficiencies as well.
Yeah, thank you.
I am not seeing any questions, so we'll move on. Item 4.7 on our budget is just tab number 11, the combined capital budget. Not sure if anybody wanted to speak to this. Fran, do you have any comments about this? We haven't heard from you yet tonight, Fran. You've been quiet for a budget meeting.
Yes, it's quite a relief for everyone, I'm sure. This is the combined listing that Becky has put together, and just to consolidate and give council totals that you're looking at for every section, but also at the bottom that identifies what your total capital, or I should say project amounts are anticipated for 2021. As you can see, a good chunk of that is still carryovers from 2020, but there's also a fair dollar number there for 2021 that's new. And moving forward with, as you just mentioned, Dave, a number of projects, some of which are going to be providing us with some efficiencies and some of which are fixing issues that we have ongoing. So that's our summary for tonight.
Thank you, Fran. Councillor Andreessen, you have a question.
Yes, thanks, Dave. So in this chart, we've got a number of items that are highlighted in yellow. Am I assuming that those are the new projects, not the carryovers, and that's why they're highlighted? Just a clarification, thank you.
Becky, did you want to address that?
That's correct, Leanne.
Yeah.
Thank you, Becky. Yes, so all the items highlighted in yellow are new. If they're not highlighted, that's part of the, looks like about 6.3 million that's carryover, but the new equals just over 15 million of the projects that are proposed for this year. So we will move right from this into opening it up to any questions, discussion about the total projects that are proposed of the capital projects for this year. We're looking at this point about 15.1 million. So I open the floor to any questions or comments about all the capital projects that we've heard over tonight and on November the 25th evening. So any member of council, just use your chat function and we will get some things discussed on the floor. Councillor Richardson.
Thanks, Dave. Excuse me. Thanks, staff, for bringing forward this capital budget. I do understand that there's a whole lot of new things that are coming on, but it's all, to me, it all seems like it's incredibly critical stuff that needs to go forward for our exploding population that we have in North Perth, and it's all part and parcel of that, maintaining the existing services and the infrastructure that we currently have, as well as adding to it in order to accommodate everything that's coming forward. So I'd just like to thank the staff for bringing forward the capital projects that we currently have. And it looks like it's going to be another busy year in 2021, just with our regular projects with no pandemic or anything else in there. It's just going to be another busy number of years, I do believe. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Mayor Kaysenberg.
Thanks, Dave. Yes, I too want to thank staff for all of the tremendous work that has been done to pull together these estimates. And I think importantly, they've started us down the road of this prioritization approach, which is very encouraging. And I want to encourage staff to continue to work on that and refine that as we move forward. I know that council will have suggestions about what factors or variables can be placed into that prioritization, and I think that together we'll find as we move into 22 that we've got this down to a pretty fine science, which is exciting to me on many scores. I think I'm wondering if council will indulge me. I'd like to ask Treasurer Hale to comment on how the project's budgets and the operating budgets fit together, and how those together combine to create the levy or the tax increase. I think this is at least it's something that I've struggled with a little bit. Certainly Treasurer Hale and I had that conversation today, and I hope I'm not the only one in the room that's struggled with that. So if council will indulge, Treasurer Hale, can you comment on how these two budgets sort of fit together and how all of that at the end of the day influences our tax increases or our tax rates?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Brand, go ahead.
Thanks, Dave. This has been a bit of a complicated item for North Perth, and there's a few other municipalities in Ontario that have been doing their budgeting similar to what we have and raising their levy based on the inclusion of depreciation in their operating budget. Prior to 2009, we would have done allocations to reserve, and that was always something that was discretionable to council. And sometimes when times would get tough, of course, then we would take the opportunity not to make some of those allocations to reserve, just to keep a tighter handle on the tax rate. In 2009, council of that day considered the option of including depreciation in their operating budget so that they could identify more quickly what it was that they were expensing as far as their assets were concerned. And like a regular business, they had a better handle on what piece of that asset was being expensed in that year, and therefore levying an amount on the tax levy to cover that, as opposed to an allocation to reserve, which actually worked for our newer assets quite well. Some of our older ones that were fully depreciated wasn't working as well for that, and we should have probably been making an allocation to reserve for some of those services and assets that were already fully depreciated. Anyway, at this point in time, we have accumulated, and it does come down to cash flow. We do have funds for our services that aren't tax-based, and we do have funds for our services that are tax-based, and we keep those separate. And therefore, we do have funding that has accumulated because it's a non-cash, becomes a cash flow matter as opposed to a levy raising matter at that point. We also have some land assets that were purchased for growth and development as opposed to municipal purposes. They have a municipal purpose, don't get me wrong, because we do put, they allow for corridors and for pump stations and all those things that we have to maintain and add to as our municipality grows and develops. But it also then has lands that we have for sale. So we've got some non-cash assets as well that in the future we can roll over and they would be funded. We almost have to wear two hats with some of the work that we've been doing in terms of development. One is that we're looking at ourselves as being the keeper of the municipal assets and the maintenance thereof, and as well as we're providing development lands available for future growth. So we put on our developer hat for that aspect of it. So at this point in time, we have not been having to levy for our projects. We have reserve and cash flow to manage those, and in turn, we will be depreciating those in our operations. So we turn then to our operation budget to determine what our levy is going forward, and or user rates for services that are not on the levy, such as care. And as council knows, we have been moving cemetery towards being self-funding as well, those services that also are in the private sector as well. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or whether you would like me to continue. I'd try again, but that is in a nutshell how North Perth has been doing it since 2009 in terms of funding project work. And it is always something that we can change if council deems that they don't want to include depreciation in their operating budget, and then we would levy then for projects separately. But it has been working for us up to today, to date this year, and going forward, I can see that it's going to get a little tougher, but it just depends on some of the decisions council will be making in the future.
Thank you, Fran. Mayor Todd, did that clear the water or make it muddier?
No, I think that was a great explanation, and I think the piece that surprises me, as you know, looking at our financial approach, is that really these capital budgets are not having a significant impact on the levy. Like we might think they do, right? And they flex a little bit from year to year. So last year, I think we spent about 20 million. This year, we're proposing to spend 15 million. But all of that money is coming forward from the depreciation and accounting method approaches that we've used over the years. So, you know, as whether it's 15 million or 20 million, there isn't a really heavy direct impact on our choice about revenue acquisition through property taxes. Have I got that roughly right, Fran?
Yes, that's exactly it. And there might come a day when it doesn't equate quite as nicely as it is right now. If we were to keep the pace of $15 to $20 million a year with no return on some of or dispersal of some of the assets that we have purchased for development, we could be bringing ourselves to a cash flow situation at some point in the future, but in the next 2-3 years, we are able to manage it as we have been doing now. But certainly council and the management team will have to keep an eye on it, as we always do, just to make sure that our cash flow and our expenditures are in line, and that we definitely have the right financing in place for some of the project work that we are doing.
Thank you, Fran. Councillor Behrens.
Yeah, sometimes the conversation gets to a point where you become confused, and that's where I am right now. So just for clarification, Fran, it actually does impact our operating budgets in the fact that we do take taxpayers' dollars from year to year that are in the operating budget. There's line items for depreciation, realizing that, you know, the depreciation of a vehicle is far different than the depreciation of IT equipment. So just for clarification, it has to impact the levy for operations, because that's where the dollars are coming from. This isn't free money. This is money that basically we call it a savings account, that we're taking X number of dollars in each department every year and putting it into a savings account type idea so that we can spend it on capital projects. So I guess I'm just looking for clarification. Whether we spend 15 million or 20 million, it's still at some point in time, either in the past years or in the upcoming years, the amount that we spend on capital projects has got to affect the money that we're putting in, which means it has to affect the operating.
Fran,
Yeah,
do you have a...
Dave, would you like me to?
Yes, I would,
Yeah.
Fran.
If I ever gave the impression that the funding for projects was free money, I apologize profusely. It certainly is taxpayer money, and I never would want to give the impression otherwise. It could be user money, it could be grant money, but certainly there is taxpayer money in that. And if I ever gave the impression that that was free money, I apologize. That is not free money. It comes from somewhere. It either comes from development charges, if it's development related, possibly. Grant money, if it's a project that is supported by either federal or provincial funding. User fees, water, sewer, those sorts of things. But as we all know, and as Councillor Behrens is underlining here, there is no free money. Someone has to pay for it. So if I ever gave the impression that it was free, it certainly is not. It's just a method by which we have been using to levy money or establish user fees. Let's use the water sewer. When Mark establishes what those rates are, he looks at his expenditures, and not only to make sure that it's enough for operations, but also that it would cover projects in the future as well if need be. So no, it's certainly just a method of how we have been raising funds through the levy and through user fees, etc. So I totally want to clarify that it's not free money.
No, I agree, Fran, and I think it's just the way that we look at it. Under the old system, Fran, we would look at that 15 million, the way I understand it, and we would say that's going to be a 3% levy increase in its own, and then we would debate that back and forth. Whereas I think this system, it's using the depreciation, is just a different system. Julie, I'm going to get to your supplemental. I think Chris just wants to chime in on this first, though.
So I certainly agree with the comments made by Councillor Behrens, but I think, and this was a conscious decision made back almost 11 years ago now. And I give North Perth a lot of credit because one time they started life cycle budgeting, even before that sort of term was even popular. And really the depreciation aspect of it is almost just a continuation of that sort of mentality. Municipalities that don't do it the way we do end up just showing depreciation on their financial sheets as a loss, for lack of a better word, because they're not budgeting for it, and therefore they have to show it at some point. So in some ways, I've always supported this council and Fran in those decisions. I think it's a good way to maintain a source of funding that will meet the needs of our capital projects in the future. And as council is aware, even with all the work we've done going forward on that, our asset management study still showed us we were short. So we're still sucking away, I think, about another $250,000 to try and keep that level up in the operating. And although I almost hate to suggest this, but that's somewhere if council was looking to look at an operational decrease along the capital area, that would be one. But as we said, we just set that policy almost like less than a year ago. And I'd hate to backtrack on that now, because I think if I remember correctly, it's going to take us 40 years at that rate to make up our asset depreciation or asset deficit. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Go ahead, Councillor Behrens, with supplemental.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to imply that I'm not in favor of the method that we're doing. Obviously, we've been doing it for 11 years, and coming from a financial background, I wholeheartedly support the way that we're doing it. My point actually was, and I apologize, is that because the depreciation is a line item on the operating budget, it must affect the operating levy. I agree with Chris in that, sure, if we can find some extra money to continue to put extra money into it, but just because we have the money sitting there, so to speak, doesn't mean that all of these projects are good and qualified. And I think that's part of the problem, that as a council member, we look at, yes, the money's there, but is it still a good project? And that's just something that we all individually have to decide on in our own minds. But I just wanted to clarify that irregardless of how much money we put away, it does affect the operating levy. And so that's the end of my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. And going back to the mayor's comment about the ranking system, I too want to thank the staff and Becky, especially for the ranking system. And I think, yes, there's always improvements, and it was a great first year on it. And I hope next year with the new software and with some more council input, we will get it even better next year. Any more discussion, questions on the capital projects that have been presented over the last two evenings to us, council? I believe we have most of our senior staff with us. If there's any specific questions on any capital project or comments. Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Dave. Just for Lyndon, going back to the Albert Street drain cleanup for next year, we talked about the lighting there on Binning Street and Albert Street. Were we going to still look at that coming in the new year?
Yes, through you, Dave. Terry, the application's been made for Albert Street lighting in those gaps, and we're looking at Binning as well. Albert, I'm not certain when we're going to be able to coordinate that with Hydro, but that's done, and we will be doing infill lighting there, as well as some other areas in town as planned as part of our regular operations. So the answer is yes.
Thank you, Lyndon.
Thank you, Lyndon.
Any other questions? I do have a motion to put forward under 4.8. I'll read the motion and then maybe Pat or Chris could comment on it. Or Fran, yes, definitely. This would be that the municipality of North Perth approve the circulation of tender and proposal documents conditional on the 2021 budget council approval. Fran, could you explain this, please?
Yes, maybe a slight tweak to that would be to be conditional on council approval. As you know, sometimes if we're able to get our tenders out early, be it for projects or for operational things such as gravel, that sort of thing, it is beneficial and we seem to get a better price. And it just gives us that opportunity to put some of our requests for proposals and for tenders out so that maybe we could get that better price if possible. And of course, it would be conditional on and subject to budget approval.
So this just lets us get started on some of those tendering and proposals to once again save us some money. So I'd be looking for Councillor Richardson. Would you move this?
Yes, I will move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, welcome. And would you second this?
Yes, thank you. And yes, I'll second this.
Great. Any questions about this motion? Seeing none in the chat function. If you are opposed, please say so in the chat function. Seeing none, then that motion is passed. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion on the capital projects at this point? Seeing none, then under council direction, we will be meeting again on January the 13th to look at our comprehensive corporate operating budget. And we'll give directions from council at that point. And then we will be moving on to the 27th with more, our 5th meeting, and then we will have to discuss how we're going to do the public information session when we are in the midst of a pandemic. So that will be discussed. And at this point, I wonder, Pat, could we get Ed's pictures up and running now? I know that. Okay, so Simon will be with us shortly. Okay, we will, Ed, we'll get to your pictures here right away. Because I have seen some of them, but the rest of council hasn't. I can see that Fran is searching for the pictures. While we're looking for that, we're just moving on. Is there anyone with any announcements tonight? The only announcement I have is congratulations, Councillor Andreessen, for your antlers and the full-blown Santa. Christmas spirit that you have shown. And unfortunately, many members of council are beginning to look like Santa Claus ourselves. Not that I'm saying a lot of us have more salt and pepper in our beards, but looking at the pictures I have in front of us, both mats are getting a little whitish, and I don't want to start at the top, but the mayor, hey, we can't hide it, can we? And then mine keeps getting whiter and whiter, so we've got some potential Santa Claus candidates on council as well to go with Councillor Andreessen. Pat still
and thanks to the lockdown, have found out that going on the Santa Claus thing, that the waistline has been turning into a coastline recently. So I found that.
Yes, no doubt, Councillor Richardson. Thank you. We're just getting Pat to try and get her PowerPoint up for Ed's pictures. Okay, Simon, if you can hear us, we need you in the council chambers potentially. Oh, there we go. Yep, now they're up. Council, can everybody see what I'm seeing?
As the Christmas Carol goes, I can see what you see.
Very good. Ed Smith, Fire Chief Ed Smith, you're up if you want to describe what we are seeing. Did we lose Ed? I don't hear Ed. Fire Chief Smith.
Dave, he looks like he's there, but he's having audio troubles.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He's still signed on, Chris.
Chief, maybe try unplugging your headphones if you can hear us. No, it still doesn't work.
Still nothing from the chief. Chris, do you have any idea? I know he said that this was the first pictures were the Atwood pumper.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to be no help on these, Dave.
You're in the same boat I am. Technology is awesome when it works, ladies and gentlemen, and Ed is out in Moncton and anyway, Pat, let's play the pictures. We can at least see them. We're not going to get the commentary. I know that he said this was the Atwood pumper, I believe, were the first few pictures. It's a long way from a truck. Okay, and now we're out of pictures anyway. So we've seen a few, council. Maybe we can work on it for our next meeting. One of the meetings in January, we can try to get this ready. Unfortunately, it's not going to work, and we're not going to get Ed Smith back on his. Ed, you're awful quiet tonight, and that's not on purpose. It looks like he's trying to talk. Callum, is that you that are on the phone with Ed? Okay, folks, I think we're going to carry on. Is there anyone with any announcements to share with us tonight? If there is, if you have any announcements, please let me know and we'll let you speak. I don't see anything in the chat function, Pat. We have no closed session that I know of. So with that, we'll move on to 7.1, the confirmatory bylaw. And be it moved that bylaw number 176/2020 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Seiler, would you move this?
Yes, I would move that.
And Councillor Andreessen, would you second it?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Very good. If anyone is opposed to that, please speak in the chat function. Seeing none. Anyone opposed to that, please. Seeing none, then this one is carried. Thank you. And I would then entertain a motion to adjourn, that the council meeting adjourns to meet for general council business again on Monday, December the 14th. Councillor Anstead, would you move that?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
And Councillor Behrens, would you second that?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone. We will meet December the 14th with council and January the 13th with budget again. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.